Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host on a mission to revolutionize the fan experience, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and welcome to episode 373 of Sports Geek. This week, I chat with Dean Matters. He's the General Manager of Marketing and Consumer at the Gold Coast Titans. You might be listening to this Sports Geek episode via our website, Sports Geek HQ, or on your favourite podcast platforms, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or my favourite Pocket Casts. If you could leave a review, or even better, if you can share this podcast with a colleague that you think might benefit from listening to it, I really would appreciate it. As always, you can contact me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com, or message me on socials at Sean Callanan. If there's any way that I can help you in what you're trying to do from a digital point of view, increase your marketing efforts, deliver better for your sponsors, that's what we do at Sports Geek. We love doing it, and we also love working with podcast listeners. So please get in touch. But for now, enjoy my chat with Dean Matters. Very happy to welcome Dean Matters. He's the GM of Marketing and Consumer at the Gold Coast Titans. Dean, welcome to the podcast.
Sean, thank you for having me on. Excited to be here.
Not a problem at all. I always start trying to find out how people got their start in sports. What about yourself? How did you get your start in the world of sports business?
Yeah, I think lucky enough to, I guess my first sporting role was with the Brisbane Broncos, which is a fantastic organisation to start with. Not long after uni, my first job was in Caroma in kitchens and bathrooms, which is a long shift away from sport, but was able to go to the Brisbane Broncos not long after that. And was fortunate enough to spend 6.5 years there with the Broncos, which is a fantastic organisation, as we know, and a couple of really good, people there as training ground for my own career in Damien McDowell and Terry Reader, who are now at the Dolphins. So I'm really fortunate to work under them during that period.
And so, at the Broncos, what was the role, and from a entry role point of view, what area of the Broncos business were you working in?
Yeah, it was a marketing and sponsorship coordinator role, graduating through to exec and further up. The longer I went, I guess the responsibility increased. So definitely had a heavier sponsorship at the start, and graduated more into the marketing side, which is largely where my career's gone as well. Okay,
and so like you said, very good grounding. Broncos, super successful NRL club, a great landing spot and sort of find your feet, and having good mentors. But after the Broncos, you went to the UK.
Yeah, it was I nearly went. It was nearly going, and then I got what was a dream job at the time at the Broncos to the UK. So I stayed another 6.5 years in Oz, and was about to turn 30, and said to my wife, "We do it. It's now or never," and we did it. We were going for 12 months and stayed for 2.5 years, which probably reflects how good a time we had from a professional and personal point of view. So I got out of the club side of things and worked at a sports marketing agency for about 12 months. They were starting up on the back of a creative agency, so it was a different world being on that agency side. And at the end of that 12-month period, I guess I worked across a number of different sports and programs there, and it was just a really good exposure to the different mix that you might deal with in sports marketing. And then on the back of that, I was lucky enough to get a role with Western Union, who had taken the Liverpool first ever sleeve sponsorship position. So it was a global marketing and partnerships role, which was, again, from someone from Brisbane and Australian sport. It was a really good step into that world of global sport, and big reason I went to the UK to experience those type of things. So it involved running campaigns across all their markets, which is, nearly 200 countries. So we would be on Zoom before COVID made Zoom a real thing, and operating with all the different key markets, using Liverpool as the basis for their marketing campaigns, which was outstanding. And I'm a Liverpool fan, so it wasn't a bad time to be there as they won the Champions League. So that was pretty good too.
So going from, like you said, club side, to agency and getting an understanding of where, what partners are looking for from the rights holders, and then being with a partner like Western Union and I guess putting in those asks or figuring out how you can best activate that partnership, where there's some things that were eye-opening coming from the club side, where you were selling the patch or selling the package or selling the activations. Did it give you I guess getting that different perspective sort of open your eyes up somewhat?
100%. When you're on club side, you think, why isn't this the most important thing right now for this partner to be doing X and Y? And obviously in your world, when you're at the club, that is absolutely everything that in that moment. But when you get on the other side, there's so many of those competing priorities, and working in a financial institution comes with a lot of rigor. It comes with a lot of legal, tick boxes that are required before you do anything. So it was. I'd come from having NRMA Insurance as our principal partner at the Brisbane Broncos, who great partner, but again in financial institutions. So they would also have a lot of these sort of similar challenges, and you find yourself just almost laughing to yourself, thinking, "Oh, yep, I'm now on the other side of this," where I would have said, why isn't this just happening? So it really did give me a rounded experience, I think, on being both sides to understand that. But also, I've done the other side too. So I knew what the club was dealing with when I'm asking a question. I knew what maybe we could access that you may not if you hadn't worked on club side.
Yeah, I think that's a definite. I mean, if you've been on club side, potentially what assets might be there that either haven't been offered or sitting there dormant, or are inventory that haven't been sold. That as a partner, you can say, well, either it's a spot in the stadium you can activate that's not being activated. You've probably got some flexibility there.
Yeah, I think, and even just from a relationship point of view, having an understanding of what that sponsorship manager that you're dealing with is working with on their side, I think it helped. It probably helped build trust there, that when we came to ask for something, that I understand their parameters, I understand what their business was dealing with as well. So the interesting point was also for me was that you felt like Australia's doing a pretty good job. Liverpool's a big global brand, but it didn't feel miles away from experiences within Australia as well. So, certainly on a bigger scale, clearly from a reach and supporter-wise, but at its core of what they were trying to achieve and the challenges they had, they weren't miles away from where we were at the Broncos at the time, and Australian sport, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really good analogy. I think as Australian sport, and I've spoken to a few people who are going to be at conferences and the Australian sports business market. Like, we execute at a really high level. It's just a scale difference.
Yeah.
And so being able to execute something in the UK or in Europe or in North America, it's the principles are the same and the execution is the same. It's just you're doing it potentially to a bigger audience.
Yeah, we had a group from the University of San Fran visit yesterday, and we were talking them through Australian sport, and one of them said, why aren't you putting player names on the back of jerseys? And kind of explaining that, hey, there's 6 brands that are already on there, trying to squeeze a name in, let alone training tradition and all those sort of elements. He sort of looked at me a bit strangely, but, there's so much to unpack that's different to being funded so heavily by such a great broadcast deal, in the case of the NFL, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in the UK for 2.5 years. Was it just a matter of it's time to come back to Australia and find a landing spot to come back to the Australian market?
Yeah, I think so. It was a fantastic time, but family brought us home, and subsequently having kids and wanting to be here for that stage of our life, I think it ticks many boxes professionally. During that period in terms of what I wanted to do over there, and personally, just the growth you get I left a really good organisation, a really good job for no reason other than the challenge, and you have those moments where you're away and think, shit, what did I do this for? But it's where you grow, I think, and where you learn different things about yourself and professionally. So it came time to come home and resettle ourselves in Australia, and ultimately back into Southeast Queensland.
So you're at the Titans. You've been the Titans since 2020. Came on board in head of marketing, and your remit's changed a little bit about over the time. You want to take us through, I guess, that initial journey and where it is now?
Yeah, I think Titans are an interesting role. I think when the opportunity came up, that I could see great growth opportunity, and I still can, to be honest. It's such a rich rugby league fan base that exists down there. It's a unique city. It's a wonderful city. So coming in from a marketing point of view, I could see a lot of upside for the brand, for where the owners and our CEO Steve Mitchell wanted to take the club. So I think that was probably a real attraction to me, and we certainly had some good growth from the marketing point of view. We've refreshed the logo during that period. We've had really good digital growth, and then I think the natural graduation for us anyway was bringing that consumer team together with marketing. So it's not the same model at every club, but for us, that consumer and marketing team, I sort of almost say we fit the old school marketing funnel, that in our team there's someone every rung the way down, from dealing with media and content at the top all the way down to renewing and servicing members at the bottom of that funnel. So it's worked really well for us. It's brought out better efficiencies. It's brought out better processes and thankfully rewarded strong results as well in terms of membership and ticketing.
So, I mean, marketing and consumer, and it means many things to many different people and in different markets. So, for my listeners in North America going, what is consumer? And there's sometimes, it becomes local. So what are the pieces that, do fall under your remit when we say marketing and consumer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from a, pure consumer side, there's the ticketing and membership. So the functional service of, performing those programs, making sure that that's up and running around game days, delivering what we've promised to our membership base. A little bit of retail plugged in there, although we run a slightly different program to most. It's largely outsourced. So that can involve, outbound sales to, then into email is really where we start to cross over in the data spaces, where we cross over into marketing with email and database management, rolling into, what I'd call more traditional marketing advertising roles, paid advertising, into organic social media, brand and design, content production, photography, and then media, not directly under me, but sort of a joint report as well. So really the full scope there from a marketing point of view, and that's servicing clearly that consumer part of our business, but also needs to form a internal agency model of supporting our corporate hospitality, our commercial partners on their objectives as well, community teams and so forth. But in isolation as consumer and marketing, it plays a really nice role. That what's happening on social media from an organic sense won't necessarily be a sales push, but might nicely tie into what we're doing in a given week.
I think we are seeing either that ticketing marketing piece, digital and content piece, and that commercial piece starting to all, either merge or at least report into a C-level executive, so there is a bit more cohesiveness, rather than having the silos of there's the membership team and the ticketing team, and they're over there wanting a flyer done or a new brochure done or a mini site done, and then the request gets up and down the chain. Have you found that your teams, the cross functionality of your teams, and sort of all being on the one page helps in that model?
Yeah, I think two parts. One that it can be hard if you're on, if your job's around organic social media. How am I truly doing, ticket sales or membership sales on a day-to-day basis? But having that consistent KPIs, across the business. And then from a second point, in the consumer side or membership and ticketing side, the days of spending multiple people just on the phone all day can be done so much more efficiently through things like automation, through email and the like. So taking a coordinator who was a consumer business coordinator and their role evolving into, consumer and marketing executive, and they sit across the communications for our membership base, from a management point of view and an upsell point of view, and then are also supporting then the acquisition side into the more marketing outbound type position. So that cross-function rather than having silos is always a good thing, but we've really seen that sort of evolve over the last 2.5 years as we've merged the departments together.
I mean, and we're, it's almost a running joke on this podcast of people being on their CRM journey, where the journey is, you're climbing Everest and you're sort of stopping at different base camps. You talked about data and automation and sort of moving that from, physical calls and, mailing letters that might have happened many years ago to what does that look like in a CRM space and driven via email. How has that, I guess, that process evolved for you guys?
The role of the data manager within a sports organisation, I think, is something that's really come on in the last couple of years. And in our case, our consumer head of consumer business and data is a long-term membership and ticketing employee of the club, and he's known the whole time along his journey that data was important, and he's worked to bring that into that single customer view. And over the last 3 years, we've probably been able to realise some of that early work in creating that single customer view that you speak about, the climbing the Everest. And there's always a little bit that isn't quite there, or there's a new bit to add on or a new channel. But for us, I think the early focus on identifying that the importance of data and us owning it all in a single place, and then the support from the business and our owners to back us with, spending significant amounts of money on getting this right to allow us to set up for things like automation, which we've been able to do in the last couple of years. So we brought on a local agency on the Gold Coast who's been an incredible partner for us, and they've grown their sports business on the back of that as well. And we use a program, Oracle Eloqua, for our automation. And automation, it takes time because you lay down the first year, you kind of lay down a platform of service elements. And the next year you can kind of repeat that and grow again, and then repeat that and grow again. But it requires attention too, because there's nothing worse than getting a personalized automated email that doesn't work and isn't personalized. So we've had some really good wins in that over the last couple of years. And I think we often talk about that as a club, that we think we're really ready for success. And that's an important thing, that we haven't quite had the full success on field in our NRL program, but things like automation are so scalable when you do have that on-field success, because by their very nature, they're automatic. So that means they're going, and you sprinkle a bit of magic dust on top of it, and they grow exponentially.
And so when you're on, like I said, that journey and, needing to make that investment, like when we spoke to Steve Mitchell, the CEO, he was talking about the Titan, the roadmap, and here's where we want to get, and, longer term piece. Did you have to, I guess, make sure that those plans and sort of, point every ask that you had to make, whether it's, investment into CRM infrastructure or people coming in and making sure you get it right? Did you have to keep sort of the, do you have to tap the board? That's what the strategy says. You like making that pitch to make sure that it aligns with those pillars to make it easier for someone like Steve to say, yep, that's aligned with our roadmap, we can go ahead? Yeah,
I think one of the great things about the private ownership model is that you have direct access, obviously, to our owners and our CEO, and they're invested in the club naturally, so they know what's going on a day-to-day basis. So building that trust with them, I think, and having little wins along the way that say, hey, we spent X over here, but this single campaign has delivered, we're back net even, let alone anything else we do. So I think it's marketing and particularly in data can be a bit all-consuming if you don't quite know that space well. So it's about educating and bringing them along the journey, I think, to say, hey, here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. And here's ultimately what's the ROI on it as well. So regular touch points in with exec, a really supportive CEO in Steve Mitchell, helping us along that journey, I think has been key as well. But then you have wins, and that's ultimately rewarding because you've done what you said you would do, but it's able to show a bit of proof in the pudding is nice as well.
And so so one of those things, I find people who are executing can focus on what they're doing, whether that's in data or whether that's in content or it's in ticketing, and they can get caught up in the day-to-day of, hey, I'm doing my job and ticking those things. How do you help? Like, one of the things I think is really valuable is getting those people to realise those wins and share those wins, and whether they're sharing them with you, that gets shared up the chain to sort of say, this is why we're doing it. These are the wins. We've got to celebrate these wins off field, but also it shows that we are progressing in what we're doing as an overall team. How do you go about, I guess, enabling that and setting a culture that does that?
Yeah, I think, again, probably set from top down, we do celebrate the wins across all departments and all metrics of the business, whether that's reaching a social following number or a campaign success, and clearly on-field and tickets and membership and the like as well. So absolutely championing those up the chain it's important as well. We recently ran a team picker campaign, which is pick your team for round one. And for the average person looking at it, it's like, cool, there's a fun little activity to engage some fans. But the metrics behind that sit about onboarding new customers that you don't have into your database, what they look like from a journey point of view, from, hey, I've just put a team in for round one, to how do we convert them into buying tickets to a game, becoming a member, all those little touch points along the way. And if you've ever seen what the board looks like when you're building out an automation campaign, there's bits going everywhere, which is quite confusing in itself. But to take it, we actually took our whole administration side of the business through that program, and to show them that this is not just a fun game on the front end. There's all this work that's happening in the back end that's hopefully going to drive a result for the whole business across more bums on seats, more memberships, which is clearly part of our strategic plan, and done in an enjoyable way. That if all you've done is had an enjoyable interaction with us picking your team, and that's a positive touch point for the brand, then that's a really good start point too. But hopefully we can get you on that journey to where we want you to be as well.
I think it's really also important to realise whether it's, you're trying to reach new fans, or if we're going to be, new to file, if we want to say that. Like, a lot of the people who are working in the business or working in your sport or working in your team, know the sport intimately, know everything. And it's like, you've got to really step back and go, what does a fan that doesn't know us, that has just moved to the Gold Coast or is coming from another sport? And, you don't have to dumb it down, but you have to go, oh, no, this is for a completely new fan. And sometimes it's really hard for, you've got a social designer that loves league and loves the Titans and knows everything about them. And it's very easy to fall into the talking to your hardcore fans that know every intimate detail and get every Easter egg joke. Like, how is that balance of, almost, unlearning, everything about the Titans to realise, oh, what would it be to be, fresh and new when coming to it from the first time?
Yeah, I think. Do you mean from a data point of view, Sean, or just from a
that training of staff and having them aware of, I guess, that persona when they're so embedded in loving the club, know all the history, and not realise that there's fans that don't know all of this, and so it's sort of trying to help them understand what a new fan might be looking for or finding out with that first touch.
Yeah, I think. It's about understanding and knowing your audience, and then also knowing the channel too. I spoke earlier about the traditional marketing funnel and where those different comms sit along that funnel too is really key. If you're consuming it on a casual basis and you might scroll past something on social media, that's clearly a completely different fan to a rusted on member communication. So I think as all marketing, it's about understanding that audience that you're speaking to, but as us as a marketing and consumer team, to be honest, is understanding that we got to reset ourselves every time. How's this for a new fan? They, from a ticketing point of view or a membership point of view, they don't know every product that exists there. They don't understand, necessarily even exactly all the machinations of their own individual membership, because we know levels of engagement change. So it's constant education, and I think constant reminding of each other to make sure we're getting that information across.
And then the other thing that we, haven't yet touched on, I guess, is the on-field and on-court product you have, and then you've got an NRL team, NRLW, and netball. What does having the multiple teams and in multiple sports, give you, in your marketing toolkit, but also, how to, change gears to be able to be talking to those different audiences?
Yeah, I think we often talk about that there's a place for everyone at the Gold Coast Titans. And again, from a strategic point of view, bringing on programs like NRLW and netball was important about giving local juniors a pathway, whether that be male or female, through to elite sport. We equally have a disability rugby league program called League Ability, which obviously is inclusive focus, which is again another avenue to be a part of the Gold Coast Titans. So it gives us different touch points, and each of those programs are at different stages of their life cycle. And certainly the netball and the NRLW engagement at a grassroots level, where young girls are looking for an opportunity for their idols that they can become the next athlete, professional athlete, is a different a different conversation to where the NRL program's at and how mature that program is. So we certainly will always champion those programs as much as we can, but they're certainly at different stages in their life cycle. But it gives us the whole of community reach as well. We're not just talking to one gender anymore. And back to my original point, there's a role for everyone at the Titans, or a space for everyone at the Titans, and that was key to that too.
Like you said, you've been lucky enough to work at two NRL clubs, but obviously, very different both backgrounds, historical, length, tenure in the league, those and sizes. And sometimes, especially in clubland, you're sort of looking over and go, what are the other clubs doing? But everyone has different demographic and location catchments. How do you assess what is success for you when you're looking through the list of other sporting teams and what they're doing, that are in different markets, those kind of things? How do you assess what you're doing and be able to again communicate that internally?
Yeah, I think it's hard to not look over the fence at what other clubs and brands and things are doing. We all do it. US, Europe, looking at what they're doing bigger and better, and who doesn't look at the Super Bowl and dream of having a halftime show at their own event, something like that. So I think a big one for me and with our team is it's a bit cliched, but constant improvement. And we spend a lot of time every week reviewing what the last week looked like, what were the little wins, what were the bits we need to work on, and that's little micro wins over a long period of time become bigger wins. And that mindset, I think, of constant improvement is probably led to a lot of successes that we've had. So they're all little building blocks that add up. But if content and social media is a really good example. There's so much that you pump out in a week that if you don't take the time to look back and go, actually, did that work? And if it's yes, why? How do we do more of that? If it's no, then it doesn't need to be parked. It doesn't need to be tweaked. Or what are the things we can learn from that? So I think our goals aren't necessarily set explicitly on what our competitors might be doing, but almost attached to our roadmap you've mentioned early towards 2030, but also self-improvement that we are growing every day. And then you look back and all of a sudden you have achieved a lot.
And is there, I find a lot of the time sort of looking at, whether it's doing a digital review and sort of checking in with a team, understanding and this is the conversation with a lot of the US sports teams that are doing a lot in local market, and now they're looking at global markets and internationally, whether it be Australia or Europe and those kind of things, and that battle of, well, how do we better engage locally? And, from my discussion with both yourself and Steve, it's a real focus for you to, make sure if someone's in the Gold Coast, lives near the Gold Coast, becomes into that Titans family, and that's, more of a focus for you than, getting fans all across Australia, because, at the first point, it's let's get people into the stadium, let's fill the stadium, let's build that community.
Yeah, I think the Gold Coast is a unique city in itself. Is so many people, this isn't where they grew up, this is their second home. So they come to the Gold Coast potentially from an AFL state or with an existing team. So I had a content shoot recently with our captain, Tino Fasuamala-Awi, and he expressed the frustration he gets when someone says to him, "Oh, you're my second team. Love you guys as my second team." And he said he almost doesn't want to talk to them afterwards, to be honest, because no one wants to be the second team. Everyone wants to be first. And it's such a challenge in this market that we're, A, getting people moving who have already got existing passions, but B, we're only sort of 17 years old. So most people who are fans of the sport had a team before we came in. We've now had 2 players debut who grew up as truly Titans fans, which is a low number for many people, but you can understand because we didn't exist when a lot of the guys that are there now first chose their team. So we're at a really key moment in our journey. I think that those kids who have only ever known the Titans are now young adults, 18 to 25 years old, and this is our chance where we can capture them for life. And this is our moment to really grab onto that and build that core fan base, because the Gold Coast is evolving and growing and getting more second generation, families living on the coast who can be attached to the Titans. And so I think that's absolutely key for us. It comes with benefits because, we can target away teams and things like that from a marketing mix point of view, but ultimately we want our stadium filled with, our colours, our fans as much as possible. And it's a real challenge here to bring people along that journey to say, hey, this is my number one team.
But one, you're right. You're in that inflection point of in your history and having those young fans come on. But also we're moving through this era that sports consumption is changing, and people are following either players and or they're following multiple teams. And so, to people of, older, and it is sacrilege to say, hey, I have a second team. And yeah, you should be offended that's the second team. But now we are having people going, that, someone might be a Storm fan, but they've now moved to the Gold Coast. And if they go to every Titans game and they're like, well, the Storm only comes once a year, so I'll be a Storm fan for once a year, but eventually you'll sort of wear them down and they'll be cheering for the Titans, 85% of the time because they're local and it's the only way they can, watch the game in their league. So there is that balance. But, I think there also is that option that the younger fans coming up will have multiple teams in market, but then also, they've got an NFL team and they're following 2 NBA players. So they're following 2 teams in the NBA and a couple in the Premier League. So the days of here's my 4 teams and I've locked in for those 4 teams for life, not saying they're over, but it's far more flexible these days than it once was.
Yeah, consumption of sport entertainment has, evolved so much. And we see that. The full season membership is right for a certain demographic, but it's not for so many people because regardless of who you are, there's so many options for entertainment and how you want to support your team. And you're right, the infiltration of US sport, Premier League, those type of things that fall in the mix for people. But for us, and I think we're a different proposition to many with the age and where we're at. It's still key to try and get them locked in as best we can in that true fandom, because that ultimately brings out the subsequent things of firstly buying tickets, but secondly becoming a member, which brings a more rusted on and more resilient business and buying merchandise and all those type of things as well. But the fan has changed. The habit of the fan is changing and continuing to change, and we need to be adapting to that as well, which we do.
And are you looking especially to that, younger consumer that is looking at all these different entertainment options? Are you looking at your ticketing product to say, you're 18 to 24, you'd much rather, we're seeing, stadiums redevelop in the US to, have a nightclub feel, and you're at a bar and there's a game behind you and those kind of things. Are you looking to see what you can do ticketing wise, whether it's helping, fans to go, younger fans go together as groups or congregate in different areas that sort of attract that fan, and, Titans game on a Friday night is a top night out?
Yeah, I think something it's really key to us, and it is to many, is that experience at game day can't be hedged on a win-loss result on field. Naturally, everyone wants a winner, but we're always looking at ways to incorporate other elements into our game day to make that more exciting, and we'll target different markets for different games and time slots. So we've done last year we launched a US-themed round. We partnered with the NFL in Australia to help bring that to life, and we just spoke about, we know so many young people are such big fans of US sport and have multiple teams in the NBA, NFL. So how do we tap into that to bring them along to the game as well, which we had really good success for year one, and we'll go again with year two. So there's that. We're bringing along a new, a lower level corporate hospitality experience, which is sideline seats, the opportunity to capture content that ultimately is currency for a lot of young people, where they can watch warm up from on the field. They have seats that are closer than any other seats in the stadium. So all those things that are right in the hitting spot for that younger demographic, where that social currency to be able to say, look what I'm doing that someone else didn't, are really key to us. So there's a couple of elements there where we're looking to target that. And then equally, you can't forget your core. Your membership base generally skews a little bit older, so there's making sure we're hitting them as well, and that there's family moments. So we're hitting all age demographics. So we really look to break down our home games to, clearly there's core parts to every game, but how do we bring bits for different target demographics on a given game? That this looks like a Saturday night is a great time for friends to go out, come to the footy, enjoy a night out, and go for a few beers afterwards. That's clearly one audience, but Sunday afternoon might be more that family angle in and around bringing the family together. So we're really targeted on how we break up each of those individual games, and conscious of bringing those different things that attract that youth market. Again, by the nature of the age of our club, our audience skews much younger. It's important to our brand and where we position ourselves, and we have the youngest fan base across the league. So that's important that we're understanding that and giving them something that's relevant to them as well.
Well, that's definitely exciting from both from a fan growth point of view, and Russ, getting those fans on board, and then obviously, commercially, they're always sponsors are always asking, what's the age demographic of your fan base, who's turning up to the stadium. So that must be quite useful for you, being able to deliver that and having that data picture and information around those fans.
Yeah, I think being able to, for our commercial team, being able to tell that true story, a clearly identifiable brand, which we've worked on in the last couple of years, and owning the fact we're in a location that's, is desirable for many people. We've got, to your point, we've got a couple of key athletes that are marketable athletes that we lean into, and for that fan that wants to follow the individual rather than the team. And then being able to give that rich data to many organisations to say, hey, what's the audience you want to target, and how can we slice that up for you, not just a batch and blast type scenario.
Terrific. Well, I am looking forward to collaborating on some of that content with the NFL AUNZ channels and with the Titans. And like I said, the dipping the toe in the water and the testing that we did last year, went really well. And so, it's a pretty good partnership with the team up there and based in the Gold Coast as well. I think it'll be something that works quite well this year.
Yeah, I think we saw great success last year, and we're really excited to bring it back again. And I think fans were genuinely excited to see the NFL, insignia on pieces of collateral, and know that was backed by such a great organisation. They're clearly doing good things in Australia as well and globally, but buying into that gives credibility rather than just saying, hey, it's a US round. Among many things, but yeah, they've been a great partner and doing a good job.
Yeah, and also just to think even back, to your early days at, the Broncos to now, which is, over a dozen years or so ago now, that the transition from here's all our games, they're all going to be at this time, and most of the rounds will be the same, to this, here's a theming round, this round's around, Anzac Day, this round is a family day, this one is, that flexibility and that, I guess, advancement that's happened in the last 15 years, especially in Australia, is pretty exciting from someone like yourself that's in the marketing role and trying to change up the game experience. To be able to run themes like that, is another useful option in your toolkit.
Yeah, and I guess to my earlier point is you can't sit in these jobs and rely on wins and losses. Wins do sprinkle magic dust on things and always help, but we need to be providing entertainment regardless of the on-field outcome, and we need to be providing a reason for people to come back, a reason for for people to attend more than one game, to hit different markets. So it's fun. It makes it creative. It's a challenge too. To my sort of said earlier, we're always looking to improve on what we've done in the past. We look at what's the record we've done in this time slot, what's the record we've done against this opposition, and how can we beat that? Who's the right audience to have at a given game to bring that to life? And never afraid to try anything. Being a young brand, we don't come encumbered with heavy traditions that many other brands do have, and that means we can be fresh and try different things or approach it in different ways, and we're not going to upset someone because it wasn't the thing we did 50 years ago, because we weren't here for that. So it gives us a bit of freedom to attack things differently.
Definitely. Well, Dan, I really do appreciate you coming on. I want to get to the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I think my first memory is actually playing in mini league, which is the kids running around at halftime, and I can distinctly remember getting changed under what was Lang Park then, but now Suncorp Stadium, to run out and play at halftime of that game. So that one always sticks with me as a sort of first sporting event, and it sticks with me in this job of how impactful that experience was.
I think you're the first person that actually played in the first sports event, so that's a terrific answer. You would have been a lot of sports events in your time. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food at a sports event?
It's not real exciting or real healthy, but it's probably the hot dog, to be honest. It's about the only time I have it, but it is my kind of, I guess, guilty pleasure if I'm attending from a fan point of view.
No problems. What's the first app you open in the morning?
For me, that one would be email. I think kind of sets up the day, and into that, we've got a CEO that's up bright and early, so it's always up and about, underway nice and early for us. So it'd be email.
Okay. Is there someone that you follow, whether it's someone online or an author or someone like that, that the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
Yeah, I think one that I really like is, and I think you've certainly touched on or maybe even spoken with her, is Jess Smith at Stuart Haas Racing. I've sort of followed her, across LinkedIn and Twitter and the like, and I think her approach to sports marketing really aligns with a lot of mine, and just watching her share what she's doing and where she sees industry going and the like, I find I guess both reassuring on where my head might be at, but also a really good one to learn from, a really good head on where everything's at in the industry and what's important.
Yeah, she has been nominated a few times, Jess. And lastly, you can answer this personally, and then you can also answer from a Titans point of view. But what social media platform is your MVP? I think
for personally, I really liked Twitter, and it was a much bigger platform in the UK, and I really enjoyed using it there. I'm not sure where it's at the moment. It's probably waning a little bit, but I probably find LinkedIn filling a bit of that gap these days. There's a lot of good on LinkedIn. There's a lot of extra stuff too, but it's probably filling that gap. And then from a club point of view, I think that ultimately Instagram has given us a platform to storytell at a brand level that is matches with where we're at the moment as well. So I think it's been an MVP for us over the last few years.
Yeah, it is very similar to a lot of other people's answers, and a lot of people use Twitter in the past tense and still call it Twitter and don't call it X. And I think that's that says enough. So, Dean, if people have listened to this podcast, they want to reach out. What's the best way for people to do that?
It's certainly still am on X or Twitter, but LinkedIn as well. You'll find me on there from a business point of view, certainly. So be happy to reach out to anyone within the network. Would be great.
Not a problem. Well, thank you very much for your offer, and thank you very much for taking the time. All the best for the season that is underway now in the NRL for the Titans. We'll have links to your LinkedIn and all things Titans in the show notes. But thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks, Sean. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Dean Matters. Please reach out to him on X. Like myself, he has claimed his name on X at Dean Matters, and also you can reach him on LinkedIn. I really do appreciate when listeners provide feedback directly to the guests to say, one, thank you for sharing your knowledge and taking the time, and really it helps me secure more guests, but also make sure they get rewarded and thanked for sharing their time. So thanks again, Dean. Before I wrap up, just wanted to chat a little bit about some of the flexibility and some of the options around our Digital to Dollars workshops. It really starts with what do you want to focus on, because there's lots of flexibility in the different workshops around the different pillars. So the pillars, if you don't know your audience, know your content, know your distribution, know your value, and know your pitch. And so depending on what your focus is, do you want to target new fans? Do you want to look at what you're doing from a content point of view and have a bit of a brainstorming session on different pieces of content? Do you want to look at some of the strategies and tactics around your social media platforms or other distribution methods like email? Or do you want to sort of look at the commercial end? So how are you valuing what you're doing in the digital space and connecting it with other assets that you've got and sort of wrapping up in that pitch? There is flexibility. I really do enjoy doing the whole process and getting everyone involved, but we can chop and change depending on, again, what your focus is, where your strengths lie, where you need to work on, where you would like some inspiration. So that's the Digital to Dollars workshop. As always, you can send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I really like getting those emails out of the blue from someone who's been listening to the podcast saying, hey, can you come help us with this? And I really love diving in on those things. I have had a podcast listener describe me as a digital Navy SEAL, going into a situation and MacGyvering my way out and helping them understand what they could do. That happens a little bit in the Digital to Dollars workshops. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.